Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News, and it's called the Formula 1 Circus for a reason. Our expectations for the Las Vegas Grand Prix may have been low, but I don't think anyone was expecting it to be quite this bad on just day one. Disastrous, shambolic track conditions, a loose drain pipe cover destroying Carlos Sainz's car. That's a 10-place penalty for him come Sunday. Nothing of his own or Ferrari's fault. Could have been a lot worse as well had this thing got airborne. How is this a massive oversight from the Formula 1 side? So many issues on the day as well. Very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. How can it even get worse from here? It's going to try. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got to mention that the organisers and the promoters for the weekend were criticising Max's criticism of the weekends. Even the promoter here, Steve Hill of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, says Max has been a little bit chippy about the race here. Maybe he's just nervous for the weekends. Maybe the promoters and the organisers and the people who put this on need to think a little more about actually making sure their track is safe and ready for a Grand Prix weekends rather than what we have seen, especially when Kim Illman, I remember watching this video before the weekends, mentions that about these manhole covers, right? He actually pointed at them and said, look, on a usual Grand Prix weekends, these manhole covers are welded down to the track, especially with the way that Formula 1 cars today work, the ground effect. Sure, they suck themselves to the floor with the ground effect at the floor of the car, but equal and opposite reaction, they're also sucking the floor up into the car itself, which means if anything is loose on the floor, let's say a manhole cover which is not welded down, it can very quickly become loose. And sure, driving a safety car around the track isn't going to expose this. Driving a few Formula 1 cars around for 5 minutes, you are going to see that reaction. So they almost always weld these things down to the track if it's going to be on the track itself. It's a typical thing that is done on street circuits, or they find another better solution than just doing that. For whatever reason, the Las Vegas Grand Prix, they overlooked this, and we begin FP1, and as we can see, FP1, an unbelievable result here. Look at this, we've got Charles Leclerc P1, and then the two Hasses. That's because the session lasted all of about 5 minutes before Carlos Sainz was pulling over to the left-hand side, and his car was completely dead. Even it says on the dash here, stop the car, engine off. And that was because he had run over a loose water drain pipe cover, basically a manhole cover, but actually if we look at the thing, here is the thing that caused such an impact. It's a pretty hefty piece of metal. You know, it's come out of the ground, it's been sucked out of the ground by one of the cars further up. I think Alonso very skillfully avoided it. There was already a yellow flag in this zone because they'd spotted it and were like, all right guys, slow down, and then bang, it was right on the racing line. Sainz drives straight over it. How is it possible to make such a blatant oversight, especially when this is like a known problem? There's a few angles of this as well, of the impact as well. If you guys can't watch the Grand Prix this weekend or for whatever reason, you can watch it via CCTV cameras. There are like public CCTV cameras from certain hotels and stuff that look over the main roads, so you can actually, if you want to, watch the Grand Prix from here. You can find them on YouTube and the internet and stuff for free. So here we go. I think this is potentially Alonso avoiding the impact, and then look at the sparks that come off the back of Sainz's car here. He runs over this piece of debris and it completely annihilates the underside of his car. This is another angle actually here as well from the grandstands, with Sainz going past, hitting that piece of debris right about there, and then I mean we can see the shower of sparks that come out afterwards. Looks like he's in the DeLorean, isn't he? Like, hitting 88 miles an hour. So basically everything was destroyed. The power unit, the floor, the chassis, the monocoque, everything was ruined by nothing of Sainz's or Ferrari's fault. They then immediately realized, well, this isn't going very well. The session was cancelled. Completely unsafe, and it was obviously realized that, well, if one of these manhole covers or drain pipe covers, whatever you want to call it, was causing incidents, then how about all the other ones on the track, of which apparently there were roughly 140 of these on the track that were potentially causing problems. So the FIA said following inspection, it was the concrete frame around a manhole cover that has failed. Now, it didn't just fail, did it? Someone drove over it, you know what I mean? And this should have been expected. You've got to prevent these failures from happening. We now need to check all of the other manhole covers, which will take some time. We will be discussing with the local circuit engineering team about the length of time it will take to resolve and what that means for FP2, which had to be substantially delayed. It wasn't just Sainz as well. It was even Ocon ran over the drain pipe cover as well, and parts of the broken asphalt on his slow in-lap, which also affected his chassis. They got that repaired and replaced slightly quicker than they could do with Sainz's car, car because there was more damage there. But, you know, as Toby Gruner from AIM-US goes on to say, Sainz knock-on won't be doing any running today, which would probably have been true had FP2 not been dramatically delayed. There was also a little bit of controversy, well, a lot of controversy, because Formula 1 said that a single water valve cover on the Grand Prix circuit failed, but apparently the FIA had told the media that there was multiple issues noted. So, yeah, sounds to me like Formula 1 are trying to downplay the extent of this calamity, but, you know, the FIA, I mean, like, who could have predicted this, right? We knew it was going to be a shambolic weekend in some respects, but we're talking 5 minutes into the first free practice session. The track is in deeply unsafe conditions, and they have to cancel the entire day. I mean, okay, they eventually got some running in, but it was far later than expected and far worse for the fans than they expected as well. And even Helmut Marko is right to say that from a safety perspective, hopefully we can solve this quickly because that could have had fatal consequences. You guys might know the Massa incident with the spring in Budapest, I'm pretty sure it was in Hungary, when that hit him on the helmet and, you know, nearly caused life-ending injuries, to be honest. So imagine this thing, if this sort of, you know, come airborne, okay, there's a halo, but it could have been seriously bad. It's something that, it's an oversight that just can't happen. I just don't understand exactly where this has originated from. And as we see here, that there's a total of 140 manhole covers. So what are they going to do? They have to go out to the track. They have to try and resolve these issues that they should have been resolving for the last couple of weeks. But no, I mean, have a look at this. Footage here from the stands where we've got these boys just turning up with like concrete, asphalt, tarmac, whatever they're using. They're just filling in the holes with, like, they're just pouring this stuff into the hole. I mean, you can see an example of it right here. They're just pouring, like, asphalt and stuff into these holes to fill them up rather than welding it down or anything. I guess that was their shorter-term solution. I don't know. And this is another kind of angle of, they must have cleaned this up. Surely they can't have left it so, like, rough and, you know, like, it's not even level, you know what I mean? But, yeah, this was one of the pictures that was going around the timeline. It's just so shambolic. It's funny, really, because we talk about the tyres and stuff like this that are going to be problematic, and then the actual thing that completely throws the weekend off on day one is something that people didn't necessarily, apart from Kim Illman, predict was going to happen. But this has massive consequences for Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. Not his fault, not Ferrari's fault, but their car was destroyed. They had to replace all of these things. The survival shell, the internal combustion engine, that's a big one, the energy store, and the control electronics were damaged beyond repair following an impact with a foreign object, and therefore they had to replace all of these things. Now, they are only allowed 2 energy stores over a season. I guess they can put in an ICE they've used before, so they won't necessarily have to start from the back of the grid. But an energy store, which is basically the battery, you're only allowed 2 of those in the season. So they've used up 1, and they're on their seconds now, and their second is running out of time towards the end of the season. So in order to put a third one in, they can only do that with a penalty. But of course, it's not their fault that this occurred, you know what I mean? It's not like they're deliberately taking a third because they've, you know, overused it. It's a problem not of their own cause. And Fred Vasseur went into the media room, really, and talked about this and said that it's, you know, absolutely unacceptable. It's going to cost them a fortune, and, you know, not particularly willing to answer questions about the Las Vegas as an event or anything else at this stage. I think it's unacceptable for F1 for today, and other team principals generally tended to agree, although with one maybe notable exception in his rival Toto Wolff, who was sitting next to him on the couch. It'll cost us a fortune. I think it's just an unacceptable look for F1, which is, you know, completely agreeable. But there's more to it than just this. It's not just the shambolic on the track. It's the shambles off the track as well. So therefore, Sainz has to take a 10-place grid penalty on Sunday because of this. And you would think there would be an exception here, right? You would think that, oh, well, you know, it wasn't caused by, you know, it was an issue with the track conditions. It was the FIA's fault, effectively, or the track organizer's fault, whatever, that the track wasn't in appropriate conditions for the Grand Prix running, and therefore, surely there shouldn't really be a penalty here. So Ferrari said this, but their case for damage dispensation was rejected, apparently because there's nothing they can do about it, according to the rule set. The stewards said that if they had the authority to grant an exception, they would have done so, but the regulations do not permit this. So they can't even do it, apparently. It's just like, how is this possible? You can't make this stuff up. You really couldn't write how much of a clown show Formula 1 is, and Verstappen got it nailed on, you know, when he said yesterday that he felt like a clown up there. Like, yeah, I mean, he was kind of right to consider it a bit of a circus. So Zach Brown, of course, of McLaren, said that he was surprised they're forced to take a penalty, especially because the Ferraris look really good around here, based on FP2, what we saw later in the day at about 3-4 in the morning Las Vegas time, as crazy as that is, because it was delayed by like 2 hours really, and then they extended it by another 30 minutes for the session because there was no running in the first one, and the Ferraris look pretty good, but Sainz will start P11 absolute bare minimum unless they can get this somehow overturned. But the feeling is that even if the stewards wanted to say, yeah, sure, that's fair enough, we grant you the exception, they're not even allowed to because of the rules. They say that if you go over, you have a penalty no matter what. I don't know, it's a complete mess. The funny thing is, and I'm not really sure that if Mercedes agreed it would matter, but Mercedes and Toto Wolff, apparently one team, have said, so basically most teams are like, sure, yeah, Sainz doesn't deserve a penalty for that, allow him to race please, guys. Mercedes are like, oh yeah, no, we absolutely agree that a 10th place penalty is necessary. I don't think this is a massive surprise because Mercedes are in a battle with Ferrari for P2 in the championship. I think people are kind of like speculating as well that it's Mercedes, but I think we can reasonably speculate that it's Mercedes because there's a fight for P2 in the constructors. Ferrari are looking pretty good this weekend. The opportunity for a 10th place penalty for Sainz, which is not of his own doing, plays right into Mercedes' hands. So apparently they have, they would have rejected the possibility of them getting this special dispensation, but frankly it might not matter anyway if the stewards simply aren't allowed to. Now Toto Wolff actually was sitting next to Vasseur, but he was making the point that it's actually a phenomenal weekend and you've got to give credit to the people that have set up this Grand Prix. He actually got really, it was pretty spicy, I'm not going to lie, these comments on the fact that, he was basically saying, well, nobody cares, it's only a Thursday anyway, and it's just a drain pipe cover, we'll get it welded down and then we'll be good to go for the rest of the weekends. And look, we know that it's the businessman, it's the investor in Toto talking here really, because his team, Mercedes, the value of that team is tied in some respects to the value of Formula 1, and the value of Formula 1 depends on this weekend seeming good, even if it's not necessarily. I've also seen some reporting going around that because of the opening ceremony, the FIA had to detract time they would have used for track inspection because of the ceremony. So the two are probably connected. If there was no opening ceremony, which people heavily criticise anyway, probably the track inspection is more, well, there's more scrutiny, shall we say, on the track, and probably these issues don't occur. So it's all connected, and everyone who predicts it's going to be a shambles was bang on the money. Now, it's especially bad for the fans in attendance. I really couldn't believe this when I saw this start to emerge this morning, my time, when I was waking up and watching all of this unfold, because the FP2 session was delayed by like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Some fans who paid the money wanted to see the cars go around the track because that's what they are entitled to. That's what they've paid to go there and watch as Formula 1 fans. But no, in the late hours of the morning, men with guns started to turn up to the paddock and to the fan zones and basically say, yep, guys, you're not allowed to be here anymore, or we're going to basically charge you with trespassing. And this is what then started to occur because it was so late in the day that for whatever reason, Formula 1 decided that they would close all of the fan areas. So if you wanted to go and watch the Grand Prix or watch the practice session, which of course is, people were there all day to watch on-track action. They didn't get any in FP1, it lasted for 5 minutes. So they stayed around for hours. All the delays, all the issues, they stuck around and wanted to watch the cars on track. And just when FP2 is about to start, they say, no, sorry guys, you've got to go home. It's like, surely, come on, it's so outrageous. Like, if they were to say, all right guys, it's going to be too late FP2, just go home now. They could have said this hours before. It's just so disrespectful, and the fans were understandably, seething about this because you've waited around 3-4 hours to try and watch some on-track action beyond when you thought you would actually get to see it, and then get told right before it begins you've got to go home and go to your hotel or whatever because that's enough for the day. They could have said that hours before, but they didn't, and they've just annoyed everybody. So that's another mess in and of itself. We do briefly have to talk about what actually happened in FP2 because there was some actual on-track running. There was some of the highlights really were Horner and Ted Kravitz beefing a little bit in the paddock. The main story probably was loads of drivers going off track, massive lockups, people spinning out and stuff like this because, cold track temperatures, tricky conditions, not much rubber on the track, especially if it rains over the weekends. When they were all doing their kind of, fast runs on the softs, it was all quite competitive, really here. We see Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen. Then I think the Mercedes went in to do some more long runs, and Ferrari kept on pushing with a few more fast lap attempts as the track rubbered in. So kind of difficult to say. Mercedes and Hamilton especially, I don't think were too dissatisfied with their car this weekend, but we know the Red Bull's going to be quick. But the Ferraris were looking very good as well, to be fair, and actually in the end, Sainz put in he put in a 1:35.7 or so, but Leclerc put in a 1:35.2, so that was the fastest lap by quite some margin, really. Alonso was P3 as well. Then it was kind of the two Red Bulls. Bottas was even up there. Hamilton's time eventually dropped back to P9 with Hülkenberg and Stroll and Albon, so not particularly representative, but it's quite clear the Ferraris, at least in qualifying trim, have good pace, and I think quali trim will be pretty important. It depends, right, because there's two mega DRS zones, and the DRS will be, a big advantage, but the toe isn't massive just because very low downforce, kind of like Monza. You don't get a massive toe, you don't get a massive DRS benefit, so overtaking might be more challenging than we initially thought. I guess we'll see. We'll only really know come the race on Sunday, but Hamilton definitely said that as far as he's concerned, quali, pace and results are going to be very important around here, and that may well go on to suit the Ferraris. Hamilton had quite a lot of fun. He said, "I had fun out there today, the car is okay, not too bad. When we're out there on similar tyres, we're not too far off. Quali will be important and degradation will be key." No doubt about it. And Russell said that if you get the tyres not degrading, you could be on for a 1-stop. If you don't, you could be on for 3 or 4 stops. So, we don't really know. It's potentially going to be chaos this weekend. The chaos has already begun. This was, a typical response here from Verstappen, who was asked the question, did you enjoy the track? Was it any good? And he said, no, straight up. And then he did kind of clarify and say, I've had far better tracks that I've enjoyed far more than this one. So that's pretty much where we're going to have to leave it for today. Absolutely remarkable turn of events. When I woke up this morning and wanted to see how FP1 had gone, I did not expect it to have gone this badly, even though I knew that this weekend was going to be a mess. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Sainz and a team representative as well have gone to the stewards to try and find a way to not be penalised for the battery change. But, track-related issue, not a Ferrari issue. I don't know if they're going to get anywhere on this after what we've seen over the last few minutes. But very much intrigued to your perspective in the comments section below. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.